everyone. Welcome to another exciting episode on Issues and Answers with yours truly, Honorable Valencia Stovall. Today is Monday, May 6th, and you're listening to the new WCEG network on WCEGTalkRadio.com. And you can watch us live on your smart TV, or you can watch us on YouTube, Twitter, X, Facebook, and on LinkedIn. You can subscribe free to our YouTube channel, or you can, we have some new platforms where you can download our free WCEG mobile apps. We also are on 12 podcast distribution platforms. And I must tell about this disclaimer, which is the topics and opinions are those of the show hosts and guests and not of WCEG Network. And we thank you for your continued support, and make sure you tell a friend. All right. And now, of course, we should always take a moment of silence for those who are no longer here with us on earth and those who are not able to live an active quality of life. I want to thank each of you for your prayers for over the past almost a year for my dear friend, Chief Emmanuel Adeyemo. But unfortunately, he passed away April the 14th. His wisdom, uplifting personality, and example of his faith walk will definitely be missed. He was a proud African man that really enjoyed telling others and telling me about his Yoruba culture and the Owu Kingdom, which he was a part of, which was located in Nigeria. And I'm grateful for our 11 years of friendship that we had. And he didn't have any blood relatives here in America. And if you want to make a donation to his final burial, you could do so at spot.fund and just put in Emmanuel Adeyemo if you want to make that donation. And I'll also put a post in the comment section. So last episode, we interviewed Miss Angel Massey, who was a mom manager for her two sons, Christopher and Kyle Massey, who are artists, entertainers, and producers. And she is also a radio personality herself. She cleared up a lot of reasons why her posts on Instagram received thousands and thousands of clicks. And so we appreciate her coming and joining our show. But guess what? It's election time. Yes, it is election time. And your ballot, your vote, that is our topic for today. And I want to know, what are your plans for voting this primary election? It's May the 21st, but guess what? Early voting is going on now. So have you early voted? Do you plan to early vote? And you have up until May the 17th. And so the voting polls are open now, 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. And they have one Saturday voting, May the 11th, which will be this Saturday. They had one last Saturday. But now 9 a.m. until 5 p.m. Or are you waiting for election day on May the 21st? So, you have those choices of what you can do as far as being able to vote. Now, I recently attended a very, very special type of event. It was hosted by Unauthorized, which is a group that focuses on integrity in our elections ecosystem. There were panelists that were actually speaking about the mechanisms being used in voting. So you all look for more discussions around paper ballots. You're going to hear a lot more about that. Drop boxes, early voting, and absentee ballots, and a lot more when it comes down to voting, especially as we move towards the November election. You're going to end up hearing a lot more about that. So, voter suppression, anytime voting is going on, we always hear about voter suppression. What's going on with voter suppression? And sometimes there are even things that happen locally that suppresses many voters' vote. So have you thought about having access to voting at all times? That means that you don't have voter suppression. When you're able to vote, freely and without any restrictions. So how about this? What about there's a certain cities in Georgia, I'm not going to put them on Front Street, but they also are having local city elections at the same time as the primary elections. The elections will be going on. So when that's going on, and if they don't use the local county elections office as the one that's going to facilitate the voting, it causes the voters to have to go and vote twice at two different locations. So they have to go and vote for the city council members. Then they have to go to a whole nother location to vote for their the county, state, and federal, which is all together. Now, just think: you have senior adults that are voting. You have individuals with disabilities. And can you imagine they're going in thinking they only have to vote one time at one location, and to find out that when they get to that city hall, that they're casting the votes only for the city council. Then they have to leave there and go to their polling precinct to cast their vote for the county commission race, the state races, and the federal races. To me, that's a form of voter suppression, when you should just be able to go one place to get that. Now, the other part of the voter suppression that's going on, this is happening now, y'all. This is not something that happened 5 years ago, 10 years ago. This is actually happening now in some of our local jurisdictions. Now, another thing, there's a special election that's taking place. And because the special election, the person who was in the seat did not denounce or resign from the seat during a certain period time, now that local county has to have separate ballots for the special election. So they can still go and vote in the same voting precinct, but they have to ask for two separate ballots. So they're going to have their regular primary ballot, which they will either declare Democrat or Republican, because we're in the primary election now. Then they have to ask for another ballot for the special election. Now, do you think that's a form of voter suppression? I think so, because people are going to get confused. How is that they're able to freely vote? Once they get one ballot, let them go down the whole ballot to vote. So we have a lot of work to be done about local elections. Now, how about this too? If they request an absentee ballot, they have to request two separate absentee ballots. One for the primary, and then one for this special election. Same thing if it was the local. Remember I talked about earlier about the city hall and the municipal elections. If the municipal elections are handling their own elections, the municipal or the city is handling their own voting, then that person wants to request an absentee, they have to contact the city. Then they have to turn around and contact the county for the other ballot. That's voter suppression, y'all. So I just wanted to bring that to everybody's attention for you all to start asking questions of your elected officials about why is this going on, and why will a person have to end up going to two different locations just to cast a ballot for who they want to vote for. There are many challenges in transportation. Just think of somebody had to catch the bus to go to the polling precinct, then to go in to find out, oh no, you got to go across town to go and cast your other vote. That most people are not going to do that. They're limited. So I just wanted to bring that up. Now, another observation, because we're talking about your ballot and your vote. Where is the heavy advertisement that usually takes place during the election? I haven't seen that during the primary election. Usually you get phone calls, you get text messages, people knocking on your doors. You get mailers in the mailbox. You're seeing commercials on the radio and TV saying, "Come on out to vote, get out to vote." Now, we did see that during the last gubernatorial and U.S. Senate races, where we were inundated, and this is just not Democrat or Republican. Everybody was inundating us with, "Please vote, get out to vote, this the day to vote." So it was no question that nobody knew when election date was. But for some reason, the primary elections don't get as much attention as they should. And most people, if you were to ask your neighbor, "Did you know that May the 21st is the primary election?" Most of them are going to say, "Oh, no, I didn't even know that was the election." So make sure you're spreading the word about the primary election. The early voting is going on now if that's what they choose to do. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm the only one observed that you don't see a whole lot of advertisement talking about the primary elections. All right, so let's jump into your sample ballot. So it's very encouraging. I'm encouraging everyone to make sure you print out or get your access to your sample ballot. And you may ask, "Well, how do I get my sample ballot?" Well, you go to mvp.sos.ga.gov. That's my voter page. And if you want to Google my voter page, you can. On there, and I always talk about my voter page on all my shows, but you'll put your first initial, your last name, your county where you registered to vote, and your date of birth. That is what gives you access to get into the database. Now, once you're in there, it's good that the Secretary of State office has made it more convenient that now all thing you have to do is scroll down and you're actually able to see where you're supposed to vote at on election day. That's very important. Now, remember, early voting, you have certain locations in your county. So you need to make sure you go to your county election board website to find out where you're supposed to be voting at. And so that's where you can early vote now until May the 17th. Now, after May 17th, the next time you're able to vote will be May the 21st, which is election primary day. So when you go look at your sample ballot, you're actually able to see what you click on the button that says my sample ballot, or it says sample ballot. You click on that, and now that's your sample ballot. There may not be someone in another county or another location in the county. Their sample ballot is specifically for you. So once you look at that, then I encourage you to take a look. You can start researching your candidates that are on there. And you can also take that paper with you to the polls. Now, don't try to use your cell phone, y'all, in the poll. That is against the state law to use your cell phone inside of the polling area. Now, there are some questions on there which are that are ballot questions. And I want to tell you that these questions are non-binding, which means that if you answer yes or no, or you don't answer it, it doesn't affect the current law that's already in place, and it does not change any law. It means that it's only a measure to support for policy. So it's used as research or analysis information to support new or possible legislation that could be introduced by either Democrats or the Republicans. Okay, so and it's not going to result, like I said, in law or carry any legal weight. So it's up to you whether you answer those questions if you want to or not. But it does give information. And even though it's an informal measure of popular opinion, there have been times where it's been a surprise in the results of those questions. So the Georgia Republican and Democratic parties choose these questions for each of their own ballots. So if you pull a Democratic ballot, you're not going to see the Republican questions. You're only going to see the Democratic questions that the Democratic Party wanted to ask and get information to get your opinion. Same thing if you pull a Republican ballot for the primary, you're not going to see the Democratic questions. And so what I'm going to do is go over these questions with you all because I've been getting a lot of people asking me about these ballot questions. What do they mean? So before I go over the questions, when you first get your sample ballot, it's gonna have on there the date of the primary, and it's gonna tell you. It also tells you do not use your phone in the voter area. So there's 2 times there. Don't use your phone. You can take it in there with you, but don't pull it out. Okay. Now you're gonna have on your ballot. Everybody's gonna have on their ballot the United States House of Representatives. It depends on where you live as far as your district. All right. Then the next one is going to be state senate because we're not in an election year for the U.S. Senate, so that's why you're not going to see that on your ballot for the primary. You're going to see state senate, which is I'm running in Clayton and Fayette. So on the ballots for all the people that are in that district, and even my ballot, it would say for state senate district 34. And on that ballot, and on all the ballots, you're gonna have the incumbent name, their name, and the word incumbent next to it. That means those are the people that are currently in those seats. That doesn't mean that you have to vote for them. That's your choice. And then everybody else will be listed in alphabetical order. Like I'm number 4 on the ballot for Clayton and Fayette for Senate District 34. All right, the next one you will see is State House of Representatives. You will only have one choice for that. Everybody has one senator, and you as a voter only have one representative, the same as on the federal level. Okay, so it's going to give you a district number. Then you choose who you want. Some of them, the incumbents didn't have any opposition, so you won't see another name, but that's still your choice whether you want to vote for that person with one name by it or you don't want to vote. That's your choice. Okay, next will be district attorney, and it's going to give you the judicial circuit. So if you're in Atlanta, it's going to say Atlanta. If you are in Clayton, it's going to say Clayton judicial court circuit, judicial circuit. And then the next one is you're going to have, like in Clayton, the next will be probate judge. So you'll be voting on probate. Then clerk of superior court. And then you have the sheriff. And then from after that, you have the tax commissioner. And you have the surveyor. On some of them, you'll see surveyor. You will also see chief magistrate on some of them. So it depends on what ballot you have. So what I'm going to do is, since I'm in Clayton, I'm going to kind of read off what's on the Clayton ballot. But I just kind of gave you all a general overview of what you're going to see on your ballot for voting. And so you have the sheriff, tax commissioner, chief magistrate, solicitor general. Now, going back to clerk of superior court in Clayton, there are 3 people that are running. The sheriff, there are 4 people on the ballot. Tax commissioner, none, chief, and then commission chair. There are 4 people on the ballot for commission chair in Clayton. Then you have the county commission district 2, county board of education. You're going to have your district, and county commission is going to depend on what district you're in. Then county board of education. Now, for those in Clayton, you will have to ask for county commission district 1. That's going to be a separate ballot that you have to ask for because of special election. Then after you get through with board of education, then it actually goes into your ballot. You also have your justice, Supreme Court of Georgia Justice. You have to select all of those. The Court of Appeals of Georgia. And there are several selections for that. So just take your time and go through them. Some of them don't have anyone running against them. So and if you want to write in, you have the right to write in who you want to write into that box. And so those are your choices. So those are all the ones for your ballot. That's official now. Once you get to the questions, like I said, those are optional, but it is good for you to complete them so that the Democrat or the Republican Party can kind of get a glimpse of what it is that your opinion is on subject matters. Okay, so now let's go into the ballot questions. So I'm going to start with the Democratic questions. And then what I think I'm going to do, I'm going to cross-reference. I'm going to ask a Democratic question, and then I'm going to do a Republican question. And just so y'all can kind of see the difference in how the questions are worded. So, and they don't mean that they're the same type of questions when I do the two. So the first Democratic question on the ballot says, should the United States and the state of Georgia protect Georgians from gun violence by banning assault weapons and large capacity magazines, choosing background check loopholes, and passing other common sense gun safety reforms? So that's the question on the Democrat. So they want to know about banning assault weapons, large capacity magazines, and whether closing the background check loopholes and passing other common sense gun safety measures. So that'll be your choice whether you say yes, they should. United States and Georgia should protect people from gun violence by banning those assault weapons and large capacity, or you may say no. So you check yes or no. Now that was a Democrat question. On the Republican, their first question is, for future elections, do you want hand-marked paper ballots scanned and verified by hand count on the live stream video? So that's the first question on the Republican ballot. They want to know whether those who chose that ballot want hand-marked paper ballots. And you've been hearing a whole lot about hand-marked paper ballots versus you going, touching the screen, it printing out, and you scanning it, and then it goes into the system. Because there's been a lot of talk about whether how accurate those actual counts are, and if you as the voter are able to see who you voted for when you print out your ballot. So there's a lot of talk, and you'll continue to hear a lot about that, even getting into the general election. Okay, the second Democratic question: should the state of Georgia incentivize clean energy production as part of a climate policy that recognizes the urgent threat that climate change poses to Georgians' health, lives, and future? So the second Democratic question wants to know, should Georgia incentivize clean energy production as part of a climate policy? And you'll vote yes or no. You know, there's a lot that's been talking about clean energy. A lot of programs being created to be able to help. And I think you even heard recently about Plant Vogel now being able to be online with that type of source of energy. So that's the number two question on the Democratic ballot. Now, if you had a Republican ballot, should the legislature enact a fair tax, replacing the state income tax and state sales tax with a consumption tax equal to current state funding and taxing no legal citizen or family up to the poverty level of spending? So their question on their ballot, on the Republican ballot, wants to know, should the state income tax and state sales tax be eliminated and only have a consumption tax, which are based on what you consume, what you buy, that's equal to the current state funding and taxing no legal citizen or family up to the poverty level of spending? So that's what that question is. All right, going on to back to the Democratic question. Number three: should the state of Georgia expand voter access by allowing same-day voter registration, removing obstacles to voting by mail, and making secure ballot drop boxes accessible at all times through election day? So the Democratic question number three wants you to say whether you agree, yes or no, that same-day voting registration should be allowed, making secure drop boxes accessible at all times, all the way through election day. So you all know there's a lot of talk about drop boxes. At one point, it used to be, okay, so one of the questions, will the same questions appear on both ballots, just a different order. So according to, I did a comparison of my dad's sample ballot and mine's, and it was still all the numbers for the Democratic ballot questions were numbered the same way. Now, I did have someone that called me and said that in DeKalb, her ballot had additional more than 8 questions. It was 16. 1 or 2 of them were repeats. So I don't have the answer for that. You all have to contact the Democratic Party about that question as to why it's 16 on that one in DeKalb versus in Fulton and Clayton. I noticed there were only 8, and they were in the same order as I'm reading them off. So getting back to the voter access. So, there was a bill that was passed that at one time you could have the drop boxes outside. Then another bill was passed that you have to have the drop boxes on the inside the election office if you wanted to be able to drop it off for voting. So it's always going back and forth. There was also talk about same-day voter registration. So should you be able to register on the same day as you're voting? And then removing any obstacles to voting by mail. So that's a whole nother thing about voting by mail. There was a question that came up, and at the meeting I was telling you I was at the conference about signatures. Okay, so if you do an absentee ballot, you have to sign your ballot and you put it in the sealed envelope and send it back. Well, the question was, who's verifying the signature to make sure it's actually your signature? And are the people that's verified even qualified to have certification in being able to match your signature up with what's actually signed? Because it opens up an avenue of anybody sending in an absentee ballot and could just make up a signature and submit it in. So you're going to hear some more talk about validating those absentee ballots when they have to be signed. Okay, so you have to decide yes or no on that. Number 3, on the Republican side, should the legislature ban registered lobbyists from serving on the state elections board? So registered lobbyists, for those who don't know, these are, it could be individuals or companies that are hired by other companies or organizations to be able to kind of talk directly with the legislative bodies. And this could be on the local level, it could be on the state level, and you have federal lobbyists as well. And they're the ones that kind of talk with the legislators one-on-one about either for a bill, for an issue, or against the issue. Or in general, some of them just give out general information. And these are decisions that help the legislative body to be able to make a decision whether they want to support a bill, not support a bill, need more information, and all of that. So every lobbyist has to be registered anytime they will influence a vote of a legislator. And so this question was asking whether those lobbyists should be able to serve on the state elections board. So that's a question for those who pull a Republican ballot to answer. That is not on the Democratic ballot. Okay. Number 4, on the Democratic ballot, should the state of Georgia protect reproductive freedom by repealing the current 6-week abortion ban, restoring the protections of Roe v. Wade, and ensuring access to contraceptives, IVF, abortion, and other reproductive health care? So that's on the Democratic. So you would decide whether you think repeal means look at the bill, look at that legislation again and change it. That to look at this current 6-week abortion ban, restore protection of the Roe versus Wade, ensure access to contraceptives, IVF, and abortion and other reproductive health care. So that's what you have to vote, yes or no on that. All right. On the number 4 on the Republican ballot, should the Georgia Republican primary have a closed primary, meaning that only registered Republicans will be allowed to vote in the Republican primary? That's interesting. So they want to know when they have the Republican primary. So like right now we have the primaries for one for the Democrat, one for the Republican. And when you go into the vote, you're going to tell them, they're going to ask you which ballot you want. If you're a Democrat and you want to vote for the Democrat, you say, I want a Democratic ballot. If you're Republican or you want to vote for the Republican ballot primary, then you ask for that. So what they're asking is saying, should it be closed, meaning that you have to be a registered Republican in order for you to get to be able to vote in the Republican primary. So that's the question. All right, going to the Democratic ballots again. Question number 5. Should the state of Georgia stop using taxpayer dollars intended for public education to pay for private school vouchers? All right, so this question says, should the state stop using taxpayer dollars for public education to pay for private school vouchers? Well, of course, you all know this is an open-ended question. Now, had it been added in to this question, should the state of Georgia stop using taxpayer dollars intended for public education for students located in a failing school or in a failing school located in underdeveloped, or you could say, you don't want to say poverty location, but in that area for pay for private school vouchers. So, of course, this is going back to SB 233, which was passed by the legislative body that allows for parents whose children are in a failing school and low income to be able to use $6,500 to be able to go towards a tuition at a private school. That's what that particular question is kind of going towards. But it's a very open-end question that usually somebody reading, they would say, yeah, I don't think that taxpayer dollars should be used for public education to pay for private school vouchers. But I have another little thing to add to that, just so y'all will just be thinking about it. Now, it's whatever your choice is on your vote. But I want to also say that when you think about federal Pell Grant funds and the GI Bill that military members use, all of those are public tax dollars. But they allow, if you have a federal Pell Grant, like I did when I went to college, you're able to use that to pay for tuition at any private college or public college or university. And so what would be the difference in the K through 12, kindergarten through 12th grade, tax dollars being allocated to go to a private school versus you're graduated from high school, now you want to go to college, using them same tax dollars, because that's what it is, allowing you to decide where you want to go for private school. Same thing if you think about pre-K and child care subsidy that we have in the state of Georgia. That pre-K money that comes from that lottery, tax money, and child care subsidy, that money is not restricted to only use at public schools that have pre-K. Of course, because all the public schools don't have pre-K. And that parent is able to decide where they want their child to go for pre-K and early learning, because some of them also get child subsidy because they are low income and can't afford the full price of paying for child care. So I just wanted to kind of throw that out there. And also, the state funds that'll be allocated in that bill has nothing to do with your local tax funds that your county collects from your property taxes and sales taxes and personal property taxes. That money is not handled by the state of Georgia. That's handled locally. So that stays where you are. So they don't have anything to do with that part. So I just think on that, we should all come together to develop a real plan for the future education and economic growth in this state. That way we don't have to keep going back and forth on that subject about public funding and private funding. If at the end of the day we want a child to graduate and be the best productive citizen in our country, in our state, then it should not matter how early education and even going into K through 12, as long as they have a solid foundation and they're able to be productive citizens. All right, so we're going to continue on. I just want to throw that little part in because I had a side note on that. All right, so we talked about that number 5 on the Democrats. So let's go to number 5. I got to speed up because I don't have a whole lot of time left. Okay, number 5 on the Republicans. Should public officials who allow illegal migration to occur be held responsible for crimes committed by illegal aliens? So you all know that question came about because of all the huge influx of illegal migration into our states. And so this question is asking about if the person is a public official, that could be a mayor, city council, sheriff, DA, any of them considered public officials, y'all. If they allow illegal migration to occur, should they be held responsible for crimes committed by the illegal alien or illegal person that's here? Okay. Going back to the Democratic question. We're on number 6 on the Democratic question. Should the state of Georgia raise the minimum wage to a living wage? That seems simple enough, right? Well, it's not that simple. You know, the question is, what is living wage? Who dictates what the living wage is going to be? And so those are other questions that have to be answered. And then what happens if one wage, of course, increases? Yes, in Georgia, we have, I think it's $7 and the federal is $7, the state is like $5 or something. So if those wages are raised up to what amount? And is a livable wage in one community? What if that's higher than a livable wage in another community within the state of Georgia? And even on the federal level, you know, in California, of course, the cost of living is way higher than here in Georgia. That's why we have a lot of people migrating from the northern and the West Coast coming to Georgia because of our cost of living. So that's just something to think about in further than just answering that one question. Okay, number 6, Republican question. Would you support a statewide vote to allow gaming in Georgia so the voters can decide this issue instead of politicians in Atlanta? That's very interesting when they say politicians in Atlanta, because that's where the state capital is located. But not all the politicians are from Atlanta. They're from across the state of Georgia. So that's just something when you're looking at these questions to be kind of thinking about. Okay, Democratic question. Number 7. Should the portion of the Georgia State Constitution allowing for involuntary servitude of prisoners and others convicted of offenses be repealed, thus prohibiting all forms of slavery and involuntary servitude statewide? So when you think about this particular question, you're looking at, you know, should the state constitution be amended or changed to eliminate involuntary servitude of prisoners and other convicted offenses, people that have been convicted of offenses. So you all, when you think about on the side of the road, sometimes you see the little prison van, you see the prisoners out there with their white on or the other colors, and they're cleaning up the roads, cutting the grass, or sometimes on the weekends you may see people out there picking up trash and all that along the side of the road. So that's what that particular question is referring to. Should those prisoners have to be made or mandated to go out and clean up the side of the road or other things instead of serving their time behind bars like when they were actually given a sentence? So that's the question. All right, Republican question number 7. Currently, hundreds of thousands of hours and dollars are spent every year cleaning up voter rolls. Would you support an amendment to the National Voting Rights Act that will require registered voters to renew their registration every 4 years? Now, that's very interesting that they said amendment to the National Voting Rights Act. So they didn't say the state law, they said the National Voting Rights Act. So, and so they want to know on the Republican question ballot, if the person, when you vote, should you renew your registration every 4 years because people move? and all kind of other things that happen. So that's an interesting question. All right, now let's go to question number 8 on the Democratic ballot. Should the state of Georgia improve access to safe, affordable housing by increasing the affordable housing supply, protecting tenants' rights to habitable living conditions, and cracking down on negligence or abuse by property management companies or landlords? So, short version, should the state of Georgia increase affordable housing supply? Should they protect tenants' rights? And should they crack down on negligence and abuse from property management companies or landlords? So you all know there was recently a bill that was passed. They call it tenants' rights. And that bill took a long time to get through the process. And it still does not actually talk about where people are living in conditions where there's mold and mildew. And a lot of times people sometimes say, why you just didn't move? Well, if they on a fixed income and they barely could afford to be there, I'm pretty sure if they could afford to move, they would have already moved. Who wants to stay in a condition like that? And so this particular question, I'm assuming, is referring to those rights of those tenants to be able to say, hey, landlord or management company, you are not allowed to operate an apartment or a house that you're renting out, and it's not livable conditions that's going to cause health problems later on for the people that's and currently for people that are living there. So it has to be some kind of regulation, because right now the Environmental Protection Division, which is EPD, which is our state version of the EPA, does not have any laws that say that they're able to come in and inspect and look. The only other recourse that some of the tenants have is if they receive Section 8, like HUD Section 8, or any other type of government assistance, then they could come in and shut that down. But then guess what? If we don't have the housing supply that's needed, where are the people going to go? So there's one incident of someone called me. Now, of course, I'm not elected yet, but they wanted to know what could be done. They're living in a facility, and these were seniors living in a facility where they were scared to call HUD, because once HUD come in and close down that particular facility, where are they going to go? Or they end up having to move and go outside of where that county is actually located. So those are some things that that we need to make sure that we're thinking about. So that's that last question on the Democratic ballot. Okay, let's go to the last question on the Republican ballot. Do you believe unelected and unaccountable international bureaucrats, and for those who don't know what bureaucrats mean, and I'm not insulting your intelligence, but those are individuals that work for state, federal, and local agencies or government agencies that make decisions on policies. So they have to go according to what the law is, but the law sometimes gives them huge flexibility when it comes down to deciding what the policies are going to be. So their question is, do you believe these people are unelected and they're not accountable by the voters, like the UN-controlled World Health Organization? Should they have complete control over the management of future pandemics in the U.S. and authority to regulate your health care and personal health choices? So that's a question on that. So those are the 8 questions for the Republican side. Those are 8 questions on the Democratic side. So make sure you go and you can start Googling those questions and see what's actually out there, some of the opinions that are out there on these different questions that'll be on your ballot. And remember, these questions are not binding. That means that if you majority say yes or majority say no, no laws are going to change right now. Now, they will probably be used as talking points once the legislative session begins, or even on the federal level, they are in session year round. And it could even be on the local level, which are making laws and regulations year round. The only body in Georgia that does not make any laws outside of the time they end for session of the state legislative body on the House and the Senate. They're in session 40 days. And after those 40 days, you don't have to worry about no laws coming from the state of Georgia down at that state capitol, because it's not going to happen unless it's a special session that's called in. Okay, so now, when it comes to nonpartisan ballot, you will not see any Democratic or Republican candidates on your nonpartisan ballot. You will only see nonpartisan seats the judges. So remember when I talked earlier about you going and pulling, asking for Democratic ballot or Republican, and say, for instance, you're independent. You say, I'm not a Democrat, I'm not a Republican. I'm going to pull the nonpartisan ballot. Well, guess what? On that nonpartisan ballot are the judges' seats that are up for re-election. So you will not be able to vote on your U.S. representative, your state representative, state senator, and even unless you got some other nonpartisan votes in your county, because some of them are nonpartisan. So unless you have some other nonpartisan locally, you won't see them on that ballot. So that's what you have to decide whether you want Democrat, Republican as far as the ballot. All right, we wind it down. And if you had any questions, I'm looking in the chat. I don't see any. But May the 21st is the primary election. So now, and make sure you go to my voter page, mvp.sos.ga.gov, to check your status. You want to make sure that you are on that voter roll and that you don't go and think you're going to your same precinct and they have changed precincts. Because in Clayton, there's been some changes in polling locations as well. And I'm pretty sure throughout across the state of Georgia. So don't think that, oh, I voted there last year, I'm going to vote this year. No, please go check your status so you don't get frustrated on the day of election and decide not to vote, which you don't want to do that. You want to vote because every vote counts. Every vote counts. And the reason you should be voting is because these people that you're going to vote for make decisions sometimes that are enacted immediately, especially on the local level. When they're voting, especially they're voting on the zoning, we talked about housing supply. And some people say, I don't want all these Family Dollars. I don't want all these liquor stores, all these other things in my community, or something else. I want different type of housing styles or whatever. Your local elected officials, your city council, mayor, and county commissions are the ones that are voting on these zonings that come enacted just like that. So you want to make sure that you're voting for people that are going to be looking at your interests. All right. Now, what time is it? Oh, we don't have that much time, but it's a Say What segment. So did you know in fiscal year 2023 alone, immigration courts countrywide received 1.2 million new asylum cases, most from recent border arrivals. The court's backlog is now triple what it was in 2019, and immigration judges' average caseload has grown to 5,000 per judge. Say what? Yeah. Next, say what? On the job front, the IT unemployment rate drops as hiring focuses on AI, artificial intelligence skills. Tech companies are also contemplating AI as a cost-effective alternative to hiring, which could impact entry-level IT roles traditionally filled by humans. All right, y'all better watch out for the AI. Some of those jobs gonna be replaced. All right. Say what? Yes, Massachusetts is the latest battleground in the ongoing debate over whether Uber and Lyft drivers should be classified as independent contractors or employees. All right, all y'all Uber and Lyft drivers out there, be paying attention. State court, the state's top court is set to hear arguments on dueling ballot measures that will redefine the relationship between app-based drivers and rideshare companies. The outcome in Massachusetts could have implications for the gig economy and potentially have effect on the companies in other states. And I know here in Georgia, you heard some things about some people that were on strike. So that's a say what? So now also, we filing our taxes and all that. I already said they are the only ones that will send notices and letters when it needs to ask you a question about your federal tax return. And you let them know they will let you know about changing, if you need to change to your account or request a payment. Don't panic if something comes in the mail from the IRS, y'all. They're here to help. This was on the website. Read the letter carefully. Review the information. Take any requested action. That means don't ignore it, y'all, including making a payment. Reply only if you're instructed to do so. So if they don't tell you to reply, you don't have to reply. Let the IRS know of a disputed notice. If you dispute a notice, let them know. Keep your letter or your notice for your records for future reference. Watch out for scams, y'all. The IRS will never contact a taxpayer using social media or a text message. Remember that, and make sure you let other people know. If they get a text message from the IRS, you better hit delete, because that's not from them. They're gonna send you a notice by letter. All right, our announcements. Of course, my granddaughter, I'm excited. Little Nova, she almost 3 months old, y'all. She's a happy, but always smiling and trying to talk. I don't know where she got that from about, want to talk so soon. But now she's not so happy when it's feeding time, or she has a little gas, or she needs that pamper change. Then we see the real Nova come out then. But we're excited, and I think she's gonna make a great baby model. So any of y'all out there know model agency for babies, make sure you let me know. Hit me up. And yes, she was still gonna call me Iya, which means mother, grandmother in the Yoruba language. I'm gonna stick to it, y'all. All right, now, do you have a nonprofit or need to register with FindHelpGeorgia.org? So FindHelp Georgia is a statewide database that when anytime someone needs help, whether it's housing, food, job, anything like that, they would go into this database, just like 211 United Way. But Find Help Georgia is another database, and they're connected to a national database. And so Clayton Collaborative through Hand, Heart, and Soul Project, which is I'm one of the facilitators. I am the facilitator with Clayton Collaborative. They're hosting a one-day free workshop, y'all, no charge, Wednesday, May the 22nd from 1 to 3 p.m. at 7 Pillars Career Academy, 2299 Old Rex Morrow Road in Morrow, 30260. Seating is limited. Anytime something free, there's limited. And so pre-registration is strongly encouraged. If you're a leader in the business, nonprofit, faith-based, government, or community in Clayton County, and you're concerned about healthy food choices and physical activities, then also join us with Hand and Heart and Soul, Clayton Collaborative, SNAP Ed. We have monthly meetings. You can send your request if you want to register, GYCC at handheartsoulproject.org. And I can send you out the link. And I also place it in the comment section once the show is over with. But that findhelpga.org is a game changer, because it allows your organization to get their information out to the people who really need it. All right. I want to thank my fellow hosts on the WCEG network for their interviews. I had Vincent Cheese with Conversations and Ed, Reverend Joe Flint, The People's Choice, Herman Anderson and Anthony Aiken, Veterans Today. Also had Issues and Answers, Norman Carter, Dr. Patrina White McClure, Church Biz, Wardell Richardson, Hollywood of the South, Demeter Chapman, Take a Stand. Also thank All Hustle No Fear, the Hood Unicorn on the Hits 92.3. Now that was an exciting interview, y'all. Well, all of them excited, but she really asked some hard questions. We had some good conversations on that. Of course, I participated in several forums that have taken place. And I have an upcoming interview on our WCEG, our bilingual corner with Ramona Hernandez. And so we're going to be talking about our Hispanic and Latino voters and how to better engage them in. Because as a state senator, you are representing everyone, all the residents in your particular county and all over the state of Georgia when you're making decisions. So you're not just, one particular race or ethnic group. So you have to be well versed in what issues that they are facing as well. So I'm always excited to talk to Miss Ramona. And also Millennium Talk with none other than Ashton Reynolds. And so I'm excited about those interviews that are coming up. And also needing your continued prayers and support for this race. Y'all, we only have how many days? I think about 14 days left before the May 21st primary. And of course, early voting is going on. So if you know somebody that's in Clayton, in the areas of Conley, Forest Park, Riverdale, Jonesboro, a picture of the panhandle down there, Fayetteville in Clayton, and Fayetteville in Clayton and Fayette County. Then tell them make sure they check their voter status and look for Senate District 34. I will be on that ballot number 4. Number 4. Either way you go, I'm number 4 from the top, number 4 from the bottom. And if you'd like to make a donation, of course, we're still accepting donations. GoStovall.com, GoStovall.com. And that's Stovall, that's all. If you want to host a meet and greet for me to come out and talk to your neighbors, your family, definitely reach out who live in Clayton and Fayette. Let us know that. We're looking for volunteers. You know, election day is coming up. If you want to come, hold up a sign that says Stovall for a couple of hours. You got some free time. Go to the website, GoStovall.com, click on volunteer, and put your information in, and we would definitely reach back out to you. And now I want to give you all the top 20, as we get ready to close out, the top 25 reasons why I am the best qualified candidate. And these are top reasons that how many minutes I have? I think I have about 3 minutes. Okay, I can run them down in 3 minutes. That none of the other candidates in my race possess. Okay, first one. I know I'm going to probably not be able to get to all 25, so you got to go to GoStovall.com to read, click on about, click on issues, or you can click on about me section, and you can be able to see the whole list of all the different areas that I have participated in and makes me qualified to be able to be the next state senator in District 34. Of course, 8 years as a state representative, over 24 bills signed into law that are currently into law. So these are not, I didn't hypothesize what I think I can do. No, these are things that I got done. One of them is House Bill 614, the Landon Dunstan Act that allows video cameras in the classrooms of special needs students. This is a law now. House Resolution 279 that designates March the 21st as Single Parents Day in the state of Georgia. You all remember listening earlier when we talking about how many we recognized. This year we recognized 33 individuals, and over the past since 2019, we recognized over 100, I think about 150 individuals across the state who are doing an outstanding job as single parents, male or female. So those are things that have been done. House Study Committee. I served on the House Study Committee. I actually introduced the legislation for the House Study Committee on the revitalization of the Atlanta State Farmers Market. And so out of that committee that I chaired, we were able to get money in the budget to be able to do some of the repairs and renovations at the farmers market in Forest Park, on Forest Parkway. And also we got a chance to make sure that Clayton County was recognized in the signage. So it now says Atlanta/Clayton Terminal Market, Produce and Terminal Market. And for those who don't know, that farmers market is the largest Southeast distribution of agriculture in the Southeast United States, not just in Georgia. So that those products that are moved in and out, that are agricultural products, come through the state farmers market. So that's why that was important to make sure that Clayton County got its due recognition. So those things I've done. Also, I was instrumental in making sure that Atlanta Technical College has a satellite office located in Clayton County on Alpha Highway 85. And so that was something done. Dance on the Bridge. We recognized for 5 years a total of about 1,000 parents who had actually volunteered 12 hours or more in their schools. And so we recognize those parents and other volunteers because it's not easy volunteering. So that's something I've done. I am a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. I talked about House Bill 614. I also hosted a career job fair for 5 years when I was a state representative. over in Forest Park, and we had people that actually were hired on the spot, so they didn't just come in and left without having a job. If they met those qualifications, we had to ring a bell every time that they were actually hired on the spot. So those are things that I've done. Commissioner, I'm currently serving as a commissioner on the M.L. King Jr. Advisory Council. And the importance of this council was established by legislation that commemorates Dr. King's legacy of what he has done for the world. And we commemorate him every year in the state of Georgia at the state capitol. So I serve on that committee as vice chair. One important nugget on that, so that you probably didn't know, is that when I was appointed to this position, I was not elected, just like I'm not elected now. And I was appointed by the late Speaker David Ralston. They called and asked, was I interested in serving on this council? And I think I take great pride in that, and very humble that Speaker Ralston would have thought enough of me as a non-elected official and to be appointed to this particular council. So that is something, in it by itself, that's very, very notable. I host, of course, internet radio show, WCEG Issues and Answers, every first and third Monday. Appreciate Penny and all the other co-hosts that work to get information out to the audience and to the public. I also hosted pages at the state capitol, had Clayton State University interns that I use each year. Hosted seniors, I brought them down to the state capitol so they can know how laws are created. We hosted them for lunch. We even had a panel discussion about issues that were important to seniors and to youth. Men and women in radio. It's oddly enough, never thought I'd be a woman in radio, but also we end up hosting, having the first men and women in radio event at the state capitol. And each year after that, we continue to recognize the women in radio. And so that was the first time at the state capitol that being recognized. We had the first Yoruba Day celebration, recognizing and celebrating the Yoruba culture, and how also having a panel discussion on how Africans and African Americans can be able to work together for economic strength in both here in Georgia and also over in Nigeria. And so that was something that none of the other candidates can can be able to talk about. Educate Georgia Summit. For 3 years, my team and I, we hosted over 3,000 people that came to the state capitol to talk about the future of education in Georgia. And we had the Governor Deal at that time was our speaker those 3 years. We had Speaker Ralston that came. The education committee chairs on the Senate and the House committee came to the event. The state superintendent actually also came and spoke at the event. And so I was also vice chair of the education subcommittee. I was one or two Democrats down at the state capitol on the House side that was appointed to a leadership position. I brought $45 million to Clayton County because of the loss of the jet fuel taxes, and that was not an easy feat for us to be able to do, but it was needed because we were not able to collect that tax, and it was used as a stopgap. It's still an ongoing conversation that's still going on now. 6-year co-host of the Clayton County Back to School Block Party. Yeah, we even gearing up now on July the 19th for the 7th annual Clayton County Back to School Block Party. And so those are things that I have accomplished. First and only Black business to have a joint venture partnership at the Georgia Dome from 1991 to 2008. And I believe even now, up until this date, we were still the only Black company to have a joint venture partnership with a major merchandising company. And we did that. We had thousands and thousands of people that we brought in as vendors. So if you ever visit the Georgia Dome from 1992, because it was constructed in 91, but from 92 to 2008, and you went to any of the non-food stands where you brought merchandise, we were the ones behind the scene making sure those stands were up and running. So that's a little bit of history fact for you. Served as a PTA officer for a citywide, served the PTA president, vice president, secretary, treasurer, all of that. Spearheaded the Forest Park environmental project where we had the students, they were recognized by the city of Forest Park and Clayton County Public Schools for their work on environmental issues. And as a result of that, Earth Tomorrow, which is a club that is overseen by the National Wildlife Federation, was actually created at Forest Park High School as a result of us doing that environmental survey project. Of course, I can go on and on. I think my time is about up, but I read during pre-K week to over 70 times, read to pre-K students at the different pre-K schools in Clayton County, in the district that I had in District 74 at that time. I served on the Clayton State University Dean of Arts and Science Advisory Council, where we met to talk about how do we make sure that the students that are currently enrolled in the arts and science get the best that they need. And then those who are looking at being able to be enrolled, how do we provide those opportunities as well? And when United Way first came into Clayton County, I served on the Clayton Thrive as one of the members on that Clayton Thrive board, where we looked at what it is that we need from United Way. And even now today, United Way is definitely thriving in Clayton County, doing great things. But that came from, they were coming down to the Capitol every year, and I used to ask, why is not United Way not in Clayton County? I said, we're a county that is in need. And so I was excited when they did make that decision that I was able to serve as one of the co-chairs of the Clayton Thrive board. And like I said, you can check out some more by going to GoStovall.com, the list of things that I have accomplished. And moving forward, my platform is the buck, the book, and the ballot. The buck is economic rejuvenation. The book is reimagining education. And the ballot is government accountability. I believe that all our young people should be able to graduate with an apprenticeship, with some kind of certification when they graduate high school. This puts them in a better position economic for our state, and economically for them to be able to utilize, even if they leave outside the state, they can still take care of their families. Our small business need that focus. So we need to, one of the things I'll be doing as your next state senator is focusing on our small business and helping them as well as support for them to continue to thrive. We know that 60% of businesses that are located in our communities are small businesses, and they're the ones that hire the people in their communities. So we need to make sure that they have that support. Government accountability is very important. You heard me read some of those questions from the ballot question from Democrat and the Republican side. It's that we need to make sure that those departments that are underutilized, that we're focusing on making sure they're maximizing for what is needed for our citizens and our residents, and making sure that they're getting the services that they need. So there's a lot of underutilization that's going on, and we'll definitely be looking at what that red tape looks like to make it easier for our citizens, not only in Clayton and Fayette, but also statewide. So I'm excited about this race. I can't do it without you all. Again, make sure you go to GoStovall.com to make a donation. Sign up to volunteer. We need your voice. One last thing, I will be creating an advisory council that's made up of individuals that are interested in whatever that area or field that you're interested in, to be able to make sure that helps guide me as your next senator with legislation and policies that need to change. So you all will be hearing more about how you sign up to be on that advisory council, because we're going to make things happen. We're going to make things happen, not just in Clayton and in Fayette. Those are the areas I'll be elected to, but I am and will be your state senator. So those issues I have to vote on are statewide issues. And so I can't stress that enough. Thank you all so very much. And guess what? Time has caught us. All good things must come to an end right now, as was on this show. We will be back on Monday, May the 20th, which is the day before election, with new topics and exciting guests. The goal of Issues and Answers with Honorable Stovall is to educate you on those things you might not think about unless you are in a situation to be concerned. And those ballot questions, you all, your ballot, your vote are things that for you to be concerned about. Remember, you can sign up for volunteer and make it a country. Go to GoStovall.com. Thank you so very much. And we will talk to you all later.